Hello, I'm Dr. Greg Neal, Senior Pastor of Grace United Methodist Church in Des Moines, Iowa. I love stained glass windows. The colors and shapes remind us that just as light shines through them, creating pretty pictures, even though they're actually irregular, disconnected, often imperfect blocks of colored glass, so also God's light shines through our lives. Even though we're not perfect, even though we have lots of blocky, irregular pieces, we're still amazingly beautiful children of God. That's the way it is with life in the real world. None of us are perfect, and yet God still shines through us with Christ's love for all. You know, you can't have grown up in the church or anywhere near the church or around Christians and not heard about sin. Sin is the big naughty, the no-no, those things that we shouldn't do because they're against God's rules. Sin is the breaking of God's laws, and for sin comes death, and I was sinking deep in sin, and so forth and so on. Usually one hears about sins, lists of sins, things that if you do them, you'll be in big trouble with God, with the church, with fellow Christians. Usually those lists of sins are thick on the things that others think you shouldn't be doing, while thin on the things that they're doing wrong. The church has for a long time focused on sin, defining it, identifying it, pounding on it, demanding that people stop doing it, creating significant penalties when they do, and demanding heavy reparations to be forgiven. In other words, sin is often thought of as a crime against God, against the church, against other believers. Dr. Patrick Cheng, a theologian and longtime acquaintance of mine, writes in his book, From Sin to Amazing Grace, about how the church has long promoted a crime-based model for sin and grace, in which sin is understood as the violation of God's laws, while grace is understood as one's acquittal for such violations. While there is some truth in this traditional depiction, in reality sin is not as simple as this. Indeed, sin is far more sinister and a far greater problem than this simplistic approach suggests. You see, far worse than any list of things we shouldn't be doing, fundamentally, sin is being separated from God's love and from loving God and loving others. Likewise, grace is far more amazing than just an acquittal for sin. Grace is the foundation of our being as Christians. Grace is the source of our faith. Grace is how we are called to live. Join us for worship this Sunday, June 25th, at Grace United Methodist Church in Des Moines, Iowa, as we explore the question of sin and the power of God's grace. The service begins at 10:15 a.m. U.S. Central Time, both in person and online. Until Sunday, may God's grace be with you.